The mining station Kepler 442b hummed with activity as workers extracted precious metals from the asteroid belt. Captain Sarah Chen watched the operation from the command deck, her coffee growing cold as she studied the sensor readings. Everything seemed normal until the proximity alarms began screaming. "Captain, we have an unknown contact approaching fast," reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. His voice carried a tremor that made Sarah's stomach clench. "It's massive, ma'am. Bigger than anything in our databases." Sarah moved to Torres's station and stared at the display. The object was indeed enormous, easily dwarfing their mining station. It moved with purpose through space, changing direction in ways that proved it was alive. The creature's skin reflected the distant starlight like polished obsidian, and massive tentacles writhed around its body. "Get me a communication channel to all ships in the area," Sarah ordered. "Emergency broadcast on all frequencies." Within minutes, reports flooded in from across the sector. The creature had already destroyed 3 cargo vessels and a research station. Survivors described the same thing: a massive space-dwelling predator that tore through ship hulls like paper and consumed everything inside. Dr. Marcus Webb, the station's xenobiologist, rushed onto the bridge with his tablet clutched in his hands. "Captain, I've been analyzing the reports. This creature exhibits classic apex predator behavior. It's hunting methodically, consuming resources and growing larger with each meal. Can we fight it?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Our weapons are designed for asteroid mining, not combat. The creature's hide appears to be several meters thick and extremely dense. We might as well be throwing pebbles at a battleship." The creature continued its approach, and Sarah could see its true size through the observation windows. It stretched nearly 2 kilometers from end to end, with bioluminescent patches that pulsed along its flanks. Rows of what looked like eyes covered its front section, each one larger than their escape pods. "All non-essential personnel to the escape pods," Sarah announced over the station's intercom. "This is not a drill. Evacuate immediately." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Sarah knew they wouldn't have time to evacuate everyone. The creature moved too fast and their escape pods were too slow. She watched helplessly as it approached, its massive maw opening to reveal rows of crystalline teeth that could shred their station's hull. Dr. Webb remained on the bridge, frantically typing on his tablet. "Captain, I'm detecting some interesting patterns in its behavior. The creature seems to be following trade routes, specifically targeting vessels with high-energy signatures." "What does that mean for us?" "We're running our reactors at full capacity for the mining operation. To this creature, we probably look like the biggest meal in the sector." The creature was close enough now that they could see individual scars on its hide, evidence of battles with other massive space dwellers. Sarah realized this wasn't just any predator. This was the apex predator of space, something that had survived and thrived in the vacuum between stars. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the cargo ship Meridian," Torres reported. "Captain Harrison says he's going to try to draw the creature away from our position." Sarah grabbed the communication device. "Harrison, negative. Do not engage. Your ship can't handle something like this. Sorry, Captain Chen. But I've got a hold full of medical supplies heading to the colony on Kepler 438b. Those people need these medicines, and I'm not letting this thing stop me from delivering them." On the main screen, Sarah watched the Meridian change course to intercept the creature. The small cargo ship was brave but hopelessly outmatched. The creature noticed the new target and turned its attention away from the mining station. What happened next would haunt Sarah's dreams for years. The creature engulfed the Meridian in seconds, its massive maw closing around the ship like a trap. She could see the ship's lights flickering inside the creature's translucent throat before everything went dark. "Harrison? Harrison, respond." Sarah called into the communicator, but only static answered. Dr. Webb looked up from his tablet with wide eyes. "Captain, the creature's biosignature just spiked. It's absorbing the ship's energy systems. The creature isn't just eating the ships, it's incorporating their technology somehow." The creature turned back toward the mining station, and Sarah could see new patterns of light flowing beneath its skin. It had somehow integrated the Meridian's power systems into its own biology. This wasn't just a predator. It was an evolving threat that became stronger with each victory. "All remaining crew to escape pods now," Sarah ordered. "Webb, that includes you." "Captain, there might be a way to communicate with it. If we can establish some kind of dialogue." "The time for science is over, Doctor. We need to survive." But as they prepared to abandon the station, Sarah noticed something odd. The creature had stopped its approach and was floating motionless in space. Its bioluminescent patches pulsed in what almost looked like a pattern. Torres, are you detecting any communication attempts? Negative, ma'am. But there's something else. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. More of these creatures, Captain. At least 7 of them. Sarah's blood ran cold. One creature had already proven unstoppable. A pack of them would devastate the entire sector. She watched the original creature's light patterns intensify and realized it was calling to its kind. The mining station's proximity alarms began screaming again as the pack approached. Each creature was slightly different in size and shape, but all shared the same terrifying power. They moved in perfect coordination like wolves circling their prey. Captain? Torres whispered. What do we do? Sarah stared at the approaching nightmare and realized that humanity was about to face its first true test against an apex predator of space. Their technology, their weapons, their entire understanding of survival was about to be challenged by something that had ruled the cosmos, long before humans ever looked up at the stars. The creatures spread out around the mining station, cutting off all escape routes. Their combined presence dimmed the light from nearby stars, and Sarah understood that they were witnessing the arrival of something ancient and powerful. The hunt was about to begin, and humanity was the prey. News of the creature attack spread through human space faster than the creatures themselves could travel. Admiral Rebecca Martinez stood in the war room aboard the flagship Terran Dawn, studying the holographic display that showed the creature's movements across 3-star systems. 7 confirmed sightings in the last 48 hours, reported Commander James Park. They're moving along our major shipping lanes, targeting vessels with the highest energy outputs first. Military ships, research stations, mining operations, anything that burns bright on sensors. Admiral Martinez nodded grimly. In her 30 years of service, she had faced pirates, territorial disputes, and resource conflicts, but never anything like this. The creatures operated with an intelligence that made them far more dangerous than any natural disaster. What do we know about their capabilities? She asked. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward with her datapad. Based on survivor accounts and sensor data, these creatures are approximately 2 kilometers in length and possess remarkable adaptive abilities. They appear to be incorporating destroyed ships' technology into their own biological systems. How is that possible? We're not entirely sure. Their cellular structure seems to include some form of programmable matter, possibly evolved nanotechnology from an ancient civilization. Each time they consume a ship, they gain access to its power systems and possibly its data. Admiral Martinez felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying these things are learning from us? More than learning. They're evolving with each encounter. The creature that attacked the Meridian cargo ship is now 15% larger than when it first appeared, and its bioluminescent patterns have become more complex. Commander Park pulled up another display showing fleet positions. Ma'am, we have 12 ships in the affected sectors. I recommend immediate withdrawal to safer positions. Negative, Commander. We don't retreat from our own space. What's our strongest response option? The battleship Defiance carries our most powerful weapons. Captain Rodriguez believes her plasma cannons could penetrate the creature's hide. Dr. Vasquez shook her head. Admiral, I strongly advise against direct confrontation. These creatures have survived in the vacuum of space for possibly millions of years. They've evolved to handle cosmic radiation, asteroid impacts, and the cold of deep space. Our weapons might only anger them. Then what do you suggest, Doctor? Observation and communication attempts. If these are intelligent beings, perhaps we can negotiate. Admiral Martinez considered the options while studying the tactical display. 3 more ships had gone silent in the last hour, and the creatures were moving toward heavily populated systems. Millions of human lives hung in the balance. We try it both ways, she decided. Dr. Vasquez, you'll take the research vessel Endeavor and attempt communication. Commander Park, prepare the Defiance for combat operations. We need to know if these things can be reasoned with or if we need to fight. The Endeavor launched 2 hours later, equipped with every communication device and translation algorithm humanity had developed. Dr. Vasquez monitored the approach to the creature pack with a mixture of excitement and terror. This was the discovery of a lifetime, if she survived to document it. Contact in 3 minutes, reported the ship's pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. The lead creature is changing course to intercept us. Through the viewports, They could see the massive form approaching. Up close, the creature was even more magnificent and terrifying. Its hide showed countless scars from battles across the cosmos, and its bioluminescent patches pulsed with patterns that seemed almost like writing. "Beginning communication protocols," Dr. Vasquez announced, broadcasting mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and basic chemical formulas. The creature responded immediately. Its light patterns shifted to match the mathematical sequences, then evolved into more complex arrangements. Dr. Vasquez watched in amazement. As the creature demonstrated understanding of advanced calculus and quantum physics, "It's responding to everything we send," she reported to Admiral Martinez. "This intelligence is far beyond what we expected. It's showing us mathematical concepts we haven't even discovered yet." But the communication session was interrupted by emergency alerts from across the fleet. The other creatures had scattered and were attacking human outposts throughout the sector. The creature Dr. Vasquez was communicating with suddenly stopped its light display and turned away. "It's leaving," Lieutenant Kim reported, moving to rejoin the pack. Dr. Vasquez felt her heart sink as she realized the truth. The creatures were intelligent, but they saw humans as nothing more than food. The mathematical communication had been curiosity, not negotiation. Meanwhile, the battleship Defiance engaged the creature pack near the mining colony on Titan 7. Captain Rodriguez ordered full weapons deployment as soon as the creatures came within range. "Fire all plasma cannons." The space around Defiance lit up with brilliant energy streams that struck the lead creature dead center. For a moment, the bridge crew cheered as they saw the weapons impact, but their celebration died as they watched the creature absorb the energy and grow visibly larger. "Captain, the creature is converting our weapon energy into biomass," reported the science officer. "It's using our attacks to feed itself." The pack responded to the attack by surrounding Defiance. The crew watched in horror as massive tentacles wrapped around their ship's hull. Warning lights flashed throughout the bridge as the creatures began draining power directly from their systems. "All crew to escape pods," Captain Rodriguez ordered. "Abandon ship immediately." But the creatures had learned from previous encounters. As the escape pods launched, smaller tentacles reached out and captured each one. The humans inside could only watch helplessly as they were drawn into the creature's massive forms. Dr. Vasquez watched the destruction of Defiance from the Endeavor and realized that humanity had made a terrible mistake. These creatures didn't want to coexist or communicate. They were apex predators doing what they had evolved to do: hunt, consume, and dominate. "Lieutenant Kim, get us back to the fleet immediately," she ordered. "We need to warn Admiral Martinez that everything we thought we knew about these creatures is wrong." As the Endeavor fled toward safety, Dr. Vasquez began composing her report. Humanity's first contact with a spacefaring species had been a disaster. The creatures were intelligent, adaptive, and completely without mercy. They saw humans the same way humans saw bacteria, something to be consumed without thought or conscience. The war for human survival in space had just begun, and humanity was losing badly. The creatures had turned human weapons against them and learned to anticipate their tactics. Every encounter made the creatures stronger while weakening human resolve. But Dr. Vasquez noticed something during her analysis of the communication session. The creature's light patterns had shown a brief moment of hesitation when she broadcast images of human art and music. For just an instant, the mathematical coldness had given way to something else. Perhaps there was still hope for a different kind of contact. 3 weeks after the first creature encounter, the human colonies lived in constant fear. Supply ships traveled in heavily armed convoys that still disappeared without trace. Military patrols ventured into space knowing they might never return. The creatures had claimed entire systems as their hunting grounds. Commander Lisa Zhang piloted her damaged scout ship through the debris field that had once been the merchant vessel Golden Horizon. Emergency life support systems beeped warnings in the cramped cockpit as she searched for survivors. Her orders were simple: gather intelligence on creature behavior and report back to Fleet Command. What she found among the wreckage changed everything. The Golden Horizon's escape pods floated intact among the twisted metal. Zhang's sensors detected life signs inside several pods, but something was wrong. The creatures had captured the pods but hadn't consumed the occupants. Instead, they seemed to be studying them. "This is Scout 7 to Fleet Command," Zhang radioed. "I'm observing unusual behavior. The creatures are keeping human prisoners alive." Admiral Martinez's voice crackled through the communication system. Explain, Commander. The escape pods are intact and positioned in a specific pattern around the lead creature. It appears to be examining the humans without harming them. Zhang watched through her telescope as the massive creature manipulated the pods with surprising gentleness. Its bioluminescent patterns pulsed in slow rhythmic waves that seemed almost hypnotic. The humans inside the pods appeared unconscious but alive. Dr. Vasquez's voice joined the communication. Commander Zhang, can you get closer without being detected? Negative, Doctor. My ship's barely functional, and I'm running on emergency power, but I can observe from current position. What Zhang saw next defied everything they knew about the creature's behavior. A smaller creature approached the pod cluster carrying something in its tentacles. As it came closer, Zhang realized it was debris from a human ship, specifically pieces of the crew quarters containing personal belongings. The large creature examined each item carefully. A photograph of a family, a child's toy, a wedding ring, objects that had no nutritional or technological value. The creature's light patterns changed as it studied each item, becoming more complex and somehow more emotional. Fleet Command, you need to see this data stream. Zhang transmitted. The creature is examining human personal artifacts. Its bioluminescence suggests high cognitive activity. Dr. Vasquez analyzed the incoming data from her laboratory aboard the research vessel Endeavour. The patterns are unlike anything we've recorded. It's almost as if the creature is trying to understand human emotional connections. Meanwhile, in the outer system, a different drama was unfolding. The cargo vessel Persistence had been disabled by a creature attack, but instead of being destroyed, it had been gently captured. Captain Maria Santos and her crew of 12 found themselves prisoners inside their own ship. The creature had somehow breached their hull without causing decompression, sealing the breach with what appeared to be organic material. Now it held the Persistence in massive tentacles while smaller appendages explored the ship's interior. Captain, it's not trying to hurt us, reported engineer Dave Murphy from the engine room. It could have easily torn through our bulkheads, but instead it's being incredibly careful. Santos made her way through the ship, observing the creature's exploration. It seemed particularly interested in the crew quarters and common areas. When it encountered the ship's kitchen, its examination became even more intensive. It's studying how we live, Santos realized. Our food, our sleeping arrangements, our social interactions. The creature's tentacles found the ship's food storage and carefully extracted samples. But instead of consuming them, it placed them in specialized chambers that had grown from its own body. Santos watched in amazement as the creature began what appeared to be chemical analysis of human food. Back on the Endeavour, Dr. Vasquez received another breakthrough. The communication array had picked up transmissions between the creatures, complex patterns of bioluminescence that carried vast amounts of information. Admiral, I believe I've decoded part of their language, she reported excitedly. The creatures are sharing information about human behavior. They're conducting a systematic study of our species. For what purpose? Admiral Martinez asked. I'm not certain, but based on the data patterns, I don't think it's predatory research. The emotional resonance of their communication suggests something more like curiosity, scientific interest. The revelation sent shockwaves through the human fleet. These weren't mindless predators. They were intelligent researchers studying humanity. The attacks on ships and stations might have been attempts at specimen collection rather than hunting. Commander Zhang continued her observation of the creature pod cluster and noticed something remarkable. The creature had created a small atmospheric bubble around one of the escape pods and was attempting to make contact with the human inside. Fleet Command, the creature is trying to create a suitable environment for human-creature interaction. It's adjusting atmospheric composition and pressure to match human requirements. The pod's occupant, a young engineer named Alex Chen, had regained consciousness and was staring in terror at the massive eyes studying him through the transparent aluminum wall. But gradually his fear gave way to fascination as he realized the creature was trying to communicate. The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted to match the display screens in Alex's pod. It was learning to use human visual interfaces. Slowly, carefully, it began displaying simple mathematical concepts, then graduated to more complex ideas. Alex, despite his situation, found himself responding. He used his pod's control systems to answer the creature's mathematical questions, and eventually began teaching it basic human language concepts. The creature learned with frightening speed. "Hello," the creature spelled out in lights across its massive form. Alex's hands trembled as he typed his response on the pod's communication system. "Hello, I am Alex." "Alex," the creature repeated, its patterns brightening. "I am—" The lights paused, searching for the right concept. "I am Seeker." Dr. Vasquez monitored the exchange from the Endeavor with growing excitement. "This changes everything, Admiral. We're not dealing with predators, we're dealing with explorers. They've been trying to understand us the entire time." But even as hope grew for peaceful contact, another problem emerged. The creature pack was growing larger as more of their kind arrived from deep space. Each new arrival brought different intentions and attitudes toward the strange new species they had discovered. Not all of the creatures shared Seeker's scientific curiosity. Some viewed humans as nothing more than an interesting food source. Others saw them as a potential threat to be eliminated. The creature pack was dividing into factions, and humanity was caught in the middle of an ancient species' internal conflict. The delicate first contact between Alex and Seeker represented humanity's best hope for survival, but it also highlighted how precarious their situation had become. One creature's curiosity might save them, but the hostility of the others could still lead to extinction. As Zhang watched from her damaged scout ship, she realized that humanity's fate now depended on which faction of creatures would ultimately prevail. The fragile communication between Alex Chen and the creature called Seeker continued for 3 days while humanity watched from across the star system. Every word exchanged was recorded and analyzed by teams of linguists and xenobiologists. The breakthrough came when Alex made a simple gesture that changed everything. Alex had grown hungry during his captivity in the escape pod. His emergency rations were nearly depleted and his water recycler was showing warning signs. Rather than demand freedom or plead for his life, Alex did something unexpected. He offered to share his remaining food with Seeker. "You study human food," Alex typed into his communication system. "Want try?" Seeker's massive form seemed to pause, its bioluminescent patterns dimming as it processed this unprecedented offer. No prey species had ever offered sustenance to a predator. The concept was so alien that it required entirely new neural pathways to comprehend. The creature carefully extended a small tentacle into Alex's atmospheric bubble. Alex took his last protein bar, broke it in half, and placed one piece on the tentacle. The appendage withdrew, and Alex watched as Seeker absorbed the food through specialized pores. What happened next stunned every observer. Seeker's entire body erupted in brilliant patterns of light, not the cold mathematical displays of before, but warm pulsing waves that somehow conveyed overwhelming emotion. Dr. Vasquez's instruments registered empathy, resonance frequencies she had only theorized about. "The creature is experiencing something analogous to gratitude," she reported to Admiral Martinez. "This simple act of sharing food has triggered what appears to be an emotional breakthrough." Seeker's response was immediate and profound. The creature began producing a thick, nutrient-rich substance from its own body and carefully delivered it to Alex's life support systems. Chemical analysis revealed it to be perfectly suited for human consumption. Seeker had synthesized food specifically for Alex's biological needs. "It's feeding me," Alex transmitted in amazement. "Not just keeping me alive, but actually caring for my well-being." The exchange attracted attention from other creatures in the pack. 3 massive forms approached Seeker's position, their light patterns aggressive and demanding. Commander Zhang watched from her scout ship as what appeared to be an argument broke out among the creatures. "Fleet Command, I'm observing internal conflict within the creature pack," Zhang reported. The other creatures seemed angry about Seeker's interaction with the human. The largest of the approaching creatures, which Dr. Vasquez designated Alpha 1, displayed threatening patterns toward Seeker. Its message was clear even across species barriers. Humans were food, not friends. Seeker's response was equally clear. This human was under its protection. Alpha 1's reaction was swift and violent. It launched itself at Seeker, massive tentacles seeking to crush the smaller creature and claim its human prisoner. But Seeker fought back with desperate fury, using its own body to shield Alex's pod from the assault. The battle between the two creatures was like nothing humans had ever witnessed. They moved through space with impossible grace, their massive forms twisting and striking with the force of colliding asteroids. Each impact sent shockwaves through nearby debris fields and damaged both combatants. Other creatures in the pack chose sides. Some supported Alpha One's view that humans were merely prey. Others, influenced by Seeker's experience, began to question their traditional hunting instincts. The pack split into two factions, with Alex's pod caught in the middle of an interstellar civil war. During the chaos, something remarkable happened aboard the captured cargo ship Persistence. Captain Santos and her crew had been observing their captor creature's behavior, and noticed that it, too, was being influenced by Seeker's discoveries. "Captain, it's trying to communicate with us," reported Engineer Murphy. "Not just study us, actually talk to us." The creature had learned to manipulate the ship's internal displays, creating simple pictographs that conveyed basic concepts. When Santos responded by drawing her own pictures on a tablet, the creature's excitement was palpable. Its entire body pulsed with brilliant light. But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Janet Williams had been treating injured crew members in the ship's medical bay when the creature's exploratory tentacles found her supplies. The creature examined each medical instrument and pharmaceutical with intense interest. When it discovered pain medication and healing compounds, its behavior changed dramatically. The creature began producing similar substances from its own body, but these were far more advanced than anything in human medicine. "It's trying to help us," Dr. Williams realized. "It sees our injuries and diseases and wants to heal them." The creature's medical knowledge was vast and ancient. It had encountered countless species across the galaxy and learned to synthesize treatments for ailments humans had never imagined curing. Within hours, crew members who had suffered radiation exposure and broken bones were completely healed. News of these developments reached Admiral Martinez just as the creature faction war reached its peak. The hostile creatures, led by Alpha One, had gained the upper hand and were moving to eliminate both Seeker and its human allies. "All ships, prepare for emergency intervention," Admiral Martinez ordered. "We cannot let these peaceful creatures be destroyed." But Commander Zhang's scout ship detected something extraordinary in the battle zone. Seeker, despite being outnumbered and wounded, was not retreating. Instead, it was calling for help, not from its own kind, but from humanity. "Fleet Command Seeker is broadcasting on our communication frequencies," Zhang reported. "It's asking for our assistance in protecting other humans still held by hostile creatures." The request created an unprecedented situation. An alien species was asking humanity for help in a civil war that had started because of human-creature friendship. The irony was not lost on Admiral Martinez. The apex predators of space needed human intervention to save themselves. Dr. Vasquez made the crucial observation that changed military strategy. "Admiral, the hostile creatures are larger and stronger, but they're also more primitive. They rely on brute force and instinct. Seeker and its allies have developed empathy and cooperative thinking. If we can support the progressive faction, we might establish a lasting alliance. How do we fight creatures that can absorb our weapon energy? We don't fight them with weapons. We fight them with the one thing they can't absorb or understand: compassion." Admiral Martinez authorized the most unusual military operation in human history. Instead of deploying weapons, the fleet would deploy aid workers, medical supplies, and food. They would support Seeker's faction not through violence, but through the same kindness that had started the alliance. The cargo ship New Hope launched toward the battle zone carrying not ammunition, but tons of human food, medicine, and cultural artifacts. Captain Jennifer Rodriguez volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. If compassion started this alliance, she told her crew, then compassion will finish it. As the New Hope approached the warring creatures, both factions paused their battle. They had never encountered anything like this. Prey species voluntarily entering a predator conflict zone, not to fight, but to help. Seeker's bioluminescent patterns blazed with hope as it recognized the approaching human ship. But Alpha One and its followers prepared to destroy this new threat to their traditional way of life. The next few minutes would determine whether humanity's greatest gamble would lead to salvation or extinction. Captain Jennifer Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the New Hope as her ship entered the war zone between the creature factions. Around her, massive beings that could destroy planets battled for the future of two species. She had volunteered for this mission, knowing it was likely suicide, but also knowing it represented humanity's only hope for survival. "Captain, we have multiple creatures converging on our position," reported Navigator Chen. Both hostile and friendly factions are approaching. Rodriguez watched through the main view screen as Alpha 1, the leader of the hostile faction, turned its attention from Seeker to the approaching human vessel. The creature's massive form blocked out nearby stars as it prepared to attack. But Rodriguez had a plan that went beyond anything in military doctrine. Instead of raising shields or powering weapons, she ordered all external lights activated and began broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the human vessel New Hope. We come offering aid to all creatures, both hostile and friendly. We carry food, medicine, and gifts for any who will accept them." Alpha 1's response was predictable. It launched itself at the New Hope with crushing force. But Rodriguez was ready. At the last moment, she ordered the cargo bay doors opened and released thousands of packages into space. The packages contained not weapons or technology, but human food from across the galaxy, fresh fruits from Earth, synthesized proteins from Mars colonies, exotic spices from the outer rim worlds. Each package was designed to break open on impact, filling space with the scents and flavors of human cuisine. Alpha 1 struck the first wave of packages and stopped as if hitting an invisible wall. The creature had never encountered anything like this, food freely given by potential prey. Its primitive brain struggled to process the concept, while its body involuntarily began absorbing the nutrients. Other hostile creatures reached the dispersed food cloud and experienced the same confusion. Their hunting instincts told them to attack, but their bodies responded to the nourishment with pleasure centers they had never known existed. Dr. Williams, aboard the captured Persistence, watched through her ship's sensors as the hostile creature's aggressive behavior patterns began to change. "Captain Santos, the food is affecting their brain chemistry. The creatures are experiencing something analogous to endorphin release." Seeker seized the opportunity to communicate with its hostile packmates. Its bioluminescent patterns displayed not aggression, but invitation. It showed them images of the cooperation it had experienced with humans, the healing knowledge shared, the mutual benefits of alliance rather than predation. But Alpha 1 was not easily swayed. The ancient creature had ruled through strength for millions of years, and could not accept that tiny, weak humans might offer something more valuable than mere sustenance. With a roar that vibrated through space itself, Alpha 1 attacked the New Hope directly. Rodriguez expected to die in that moment, but something extraordinary happened. Other creatures, those who had tasted human food and felt human kindness, moved to intercept Alpha 1. For the first time in their species' history, they chose cooperation over dominance. The battle that followed was unlike anything previously recorded. It was not just a physical conflict, but an ideological revolution. The progressive creatures fought not to destroy but to protect. They used their massive forms to shield human ships while demonstrating the benefits of peaceful coexistence. Alex Chen, still in his pod near Seeker, became an unexpected voice in the conflict. His communication systems had been enhanced by Seeker's technology, allowing him to broadcast to all creatures simultaneously. "You don't have to choose between strength and kindness," he transmitted. "Humans are weak individually, but we become strong through cooperation. We share food not because we have too much, but because sharing makes us all stronger." The message resonated through the creature pack with profound impact. These ancient beings had never considered that strength could come from unity rather than dominance. Alex's words sparked something that had been dormant in their species for eons, the desire for community. One by one, the hostile creatures began to approach the human ships. Not to attack, but to investigate. They had witnessed their packmates growing stronger through cooperation and wanted to experience this phenomenon themselves. Dr. Vasquez, monitoring from the Endeavor, documented each interaction with growing excitement. "Admiral, we're witnessing the birth of interspecies civilization. These creatures are evolving socially in real time, but the transformation was not without resistance. Alpha 1 and a core group of traditionalists refused to accept the new paradigm. They withdrew to the edge of the system and began calling to others of their kind across the galaxy. Older, more primitive creatures, who had never encountered any species capable of changing their fundamental nature. Long-range sensors are detecting massive contacts approaching from deep space, reported Commander Zhang from her scout ship. Admiral, we may have won this battle, but there's an entire empire of hostile creatures heading our way. The approaching forces represented the old guard of the creature species, ancient beings who had conquered galaxies through pure predation. They viewed the progressive faction as a disease to be eliminated before it could spread. Admiral Martinez faced an impossible decision. Humanity could flee to distant systems and hope the ancient creatures never found them, or they could stand with their new allies in a conflict that would determine the future of the galaxy. All ships, prepare for extended engagement, she ordered. We stand with Seeker and the progressive faction. If we're going to face extinction, we'll do it fighting for the principle that intelligence and compassion are stronger than brute force. The preparation for the coming battle took an unexpected form. Instead of weapons and shields, the human fleet loaded every available ship with food, medicine, art, and music. If they were going to change an ancient species' fundamental nature, they needed to demonstrate everything that made consciousness valuable. Seeker and its allies began teaching humans their advanced technologies, not weapons, but tools for creation and healing. The creature faction had mastered biotechnology beyond human imagination, and they freely shared this knowledge with their new partners. Within days, human ships were equipped with living armor that could heal battle damage and create weapons that generated, rather than destroyed. The alliance was becoming something unprecedented, a fusion of biological and technological civilization. But as the ancient creatures approached from deep space, both species knew they faced their greatest test. The upcoming battle would not just determine survival, but whether the galaxy's future would be based on predation or cooperation. Captain Rodriguez prepared the New Hope for its next mission, loading the cargo hold with humanity's most precious offerings. If they were going to convince creatures older than their solar system to change their ways, they would need to present the very best of what civilization could achieve. The Ancient Ones were coming, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. The Ancient Ones arrived like a cosmic storm. Hundreds of massive creatures, each larger and more scarred than anything the Human-Creature Alliance had yet encountered, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Their presence dimmed nearby stars and sent gravitational waves rippling through the asteroid fields. Admiral Martinez watched from the bridge of the Terran Dawn as her sensors struggled to count the approaching armada. Dr. Vasquez, please tell me you have some insight into what we're facing. These creatures are old, Admiral. Possibly millions of years old. Their biosignatures show extensive evolutionary modifications. They've been deliberately enhancing themselves for combat across geological time scales. Seeker's communication reached the human fleet through the quantum entanglement arrays the Alliance had developed. Its message was grim. Ancient devourers come. They consume galaxies. They see change as weakness. We fight or all die. The lead creature of the ancient armada was something beyond normal classification. It stretched nearly 10 kilometers in length, its hide bearing the scars of battles against entire civilizations. Dr. Vasquez designated it the Omega Prime, a creature so old it might have witnessed the birth of stars. Seeker Pack, submit or perish. The Omega Prime's message blazed across space in patterns so intense they overloaded human sensors. Weak think spreads like disease. We cure with cleansing fire. Admiral Martinez realized they faced something worse than extinction. They faced the destruction of everything progressive their alliance had achieved. If the Ancient Ones won, the galaxy would return to an age of pure predation that would last until the stars burned out. All ships, implement Operation Harmony, she ordered. Operation Harmony was humanity's most desperate gambit. Instead of meeting the ancient creatures with weapons or defensive formations, the human fleet would demonstrate the strength of their alliance through coordinated creation. The cargo ships began releasing their precious cargo in a pattern that stretched across the entire system. Seeds from Earth, terraforming equipment, medical supplies, and cultural artifacts formed a vast spiral of life and creation. At the center of the spiral, human and progressive creature ships worked together to build something unprecedented. Alex Chen, now equipped with hybrid human-creature technology, served as the primary coordinator. His consciousness had been enhanced through symbiosis with Seeker's neural networks, allowing him to think at creature-level speeds while maintaining human empathy and creativity. We're not just building a defense, Alex transmitted to both fleets. We're building a demonstration of what cooperative civilization can achieve. The construction project unfolded at impossible speed. Human engineering combined with creature biotechnology created living space stations that could grow and adapt. Weapons platforms became gardens that could defend through creation rather than destruction. Ship hulls transformed into art galleries displaying the finest achievements of both species. The Ancient Ones approached this display with growing confusion and anger. They had conquered countless galaxies by destroying everything in their path. But here was something they had never encountered: prey species that responded to threat by creating rather than fleeing. Omega Prime's response was predictably violent. It launched itself at the nearest human vessel, intending to demonstrate the futility of resistance. But when it struck the ship's living hull, something unexpected happened. The bioarmor didn't just absorb the impact. It absorbed the creature's rage and aggression, converting those emotions into nutrients that fed the ship's growth. The vessel became stronger and more beautiful with each attack. Impossible! Omega Prime's patterns blazed. Strength comes from domination. Weakness brings death. Strength comes from cooperation, Alex replied through the quantum arrays. Let us show you what millions of years of collaboration have achieved. The hybrid stations began broadcasting the history of human civilization, not the wars and conflicts, but the art, music, and scientific discoveries that had emerged from collaborative effort. They showed how humans had gone from cave dwellers to star travelers, not through individual strength, but through shared knowledge and mutual support. More importantly, they showed how the progressive creatures had evolved in just weeks through cooperation with humans. Seeker and its allies displayed new capabilities that exceeded anything their species had achieved in millions of years of solitary hunting. Some of the younger Ancient Ones paused in their advance, their bioluminescent patterns flickering with uncertainty. They had never seen evidence that cooperation could produce greater power than domination. But Omega Prime remained unconvinced. It called upon powers that the younger generation had never witnessed. Technologies and abilities accumulated across eons of conquest. The space around the ancient creature began to warp as it prepared to unleash destructive forces that could shatter planets. If cooperation weakthink spreads, galaxy dies, Omega Prime declared. We end weakthink now. The attack came as a wave of pure destruction that consumed asteroids and vaporized smaller debris. It struck the Human Creature Alliance's creation spiral with enough force to destroy entire solar systems. But instead of destruction, something miraculous occurred. The combined technologies of both species had created a form of matter that converted destructive energy into creative force. Omega Prime's ultimate weapon became the power source for an explosion of life and beauty that illuminated the entire system. Gardens bloomed in the vacuum of space. Living art installations grew from destroyed matter. Music generated by the interaction of solar radiation and hybrid crystals filled communication frequencies with harmonies that had never existed before. The Ancient Ones stopped their advance, overwhelmed by sensory input they could not process. For millions of years, they had known only the satisfaction of destruction. The concept of creation as a source of power was incomprehensible to their ancient minds. How? Omega Prime's patterns showed genuine confusion for the first time in eons. Destruction brings power. Creation brings weakness. Creation brings immortality, Alex replied. Everything you destroy is lost forever. Everything we create lasts beyond our individual lives. Which is truly stronger? The question struck at the core of the Ancient One's existence. They had conquered galaxies, but what had they built? They had accumulated power, but what legacy remained after their passage? For the first time in millions of years, the ancient creatures began to question their fundamental assumptions about existence. Seeker sensed the moment of uncertainty and acted with wisdom that surprised even its human allies. Instead of pressing the advantage, it offered something the Ancient Ones had never received: respect for their power combined, with an invitation to use that power for creation rather than destruction. Ancient Ones strong beyond measure, Seeker's patterns conveyed. Help us build instead of destroy. Show galaxy what true power creates. The offer hung in space like a bridge between two ages of galactic civilization. On one side lay millions of years of conquest and predation. On the other lay the possibility of a future where the mightiest creatures in the galaxy use their strength to nurture rather than consume. Omega Prime's response would determine not just the fate of the human-creature alliance, but the evolutionary direction of consciousness itself in their galaxy. The silence stretched across space as Omega Prime contemplated Seeker's offer. For the first time in millions of years, the ancient creature's bioluminescent pattern showed uncertainty rather than aggression. Around it, hundreds of other ancient ones waited for their leader's decision, their massive forms creating shadows across multiple star systems. Alex Chen, his consciousness now permanently linked with Seeker's neural network, felt the weight of this moment. Two species' futures hung in the balance. But more than that, the fundamental nature of civilization in their galaxy was about to be decided. "I offer proof," Alex transmitted to Omega Prime, his message carrying the combined authority of human determination and creature wisdom. "Allow one of your kind to experience what we have built together. If cooperation proves weaker than domination, we will submit to your judgment." The challenge was unprecedented. No ancient creature had ever voluntarily limited its power to test a philosophical principle. But Omega Prime's curiosity had been awakened by the impossible sight of destruction, transformed into creation. "Choose." Omega Prime's patterns blazed across space. "Choose one of lesser ancient ones for this test, a creature smaller than Omega Prime but still massive beyond human." Comprehension moved forward from the ancient armada. Dr. Vasquez's sensors identified it as approximately 3 million years old, ancient by human standards, but young among its kind. Its patterns showed the controlled aggression of a being that had never known defeat. "I am Void Render," the creature announced. "I have consumed 10,000 worlds. Show me this weakness you call cooperation." Captain Rodriguez, now commanding a hybrid bioship that had grown around the New Hope, moved to intercept Void Render. But instead of weapons or defenses, her ship carried something far more dangerous to a predator's worldview. "Hope. We don't ask you to abandon your strength," Rodriguez transmitted. "We ask you to discover what strength can build instead of what it can destroy." What followed was the strangest first contact in galactic history. Instead of battle or negotiation, it was an education. Human teachers and progressive creatures worked together to show Void Render the accumulated achievements of cooperative civilization. They showed him art that could only be created through the interaction of multiple minds. They demonstrated technologies that required trust between species to function. They revealed mathematical proofs that emerged from combining human intuition with creature logic. But the true breakthrough came when Dr. Williams introduced Void Render to the concept of healing. The ancient creature had never encountered medicine. Its kind healed through consuming others or simply endured injuries across geological time. The idea of using knowledge to repair rather than replace was revolutionary. "You waste energy on broken things," Void Render observed as he watched Dr. Williams heal a human crew member's radiation burns. "Efficient to consume and replace with stronger. But then we lose their knowledge, their relationships, their unique perspectives," Dr. Williams replied. "When we heal instead of replace, we preserve everything they can still contribute." Void Render's patterns flickered with confusion. The concept of valuing something for its non-physical contributions was alien to a species that had always measured worth in terms of raw power or nutritional value. The education continued for days. Human philosophers engaged Void Render in discussions about consciousness and meaning. Progressive creatures shared their new discoveries about the emotional satisfaction that came from creation rather than destruction. Artists from both species collaborated on works that neither could have conceived alone. Gradually, something unprecedented began to happen. Void Render's aggressive patterns started to incorporate new frequencies, colors and rhythms that had never existed in ancient creature communication. It was learning to express concepts its species had never needed: curiosity, appreciation, wonder. The transformation reached its peak when Void Render encountered human music. The mathematical precision appealed to its analytical mind, but the emotional content triggered responses in neural pathways that had been dormant for millions of years. "This serves no survival function," Void Render observed while listening to a symphony created by the Human-Creature Alliance. "Yet it creates satisfaction. How is this possible?" "Because survival isn't enough," Alex replied. "Once you've mastered survival, the next challenge is finding meaning. Art, music, poetry, these are what make existence worth preserving." Moment of ultimate truth came when Void Render, was offered the same choice that had transformed Seeker, the opportunity to share food with a potential prey species. A human child, part of a family aboard one of the colony ships, offered Void Render a drawing she had made of the creature. The ancient being studied the artwork with growing amazement. Here was a tiny, fragile creature that could not possibly survive in combat against Void Render. Yet she had created something that captured the creature's essence in ways that million-year-old sensor arrays could not match. She sees me. Void Render's patterns whispered in wonder, not as threat or food, but as individual, as being worthy of artistic representation. The revelation struck Void Render with the force of a colliding planet. For millions of years, it had been defined by its power to destroy, but this small human had seen something in it worth preserving, worth celebrating in art. When Void Render accepted the drawing and carefully stored it within specialized chambers in its body, the transformation was complete. The ancient creature had discovered that being valued for what it was, rather than feared for what it could do, provided a satisfaction deeper than any conquest. Omega Prime, Void Render transmitted to its leader. The small ones speak truth. Cooperation does not weaken. It reveals strength we never knew we possessed. The response from the other ancient ones was immediate and divided. Some saw Void Render's transformation as proof of cooperation's power. Others viewed it as contamination that needed to be eliminated before it could spread. But Omega Prime surprised everyone with its response. The ancient leader had been observing not just Void Render's transformation, but the reactions of its own forces. It had seen younger creatures voluntarily joining the cooperative alliance, witnessed impossible technologies born from interspecies collaboration, and observed the satisfaction that came from creation rather than destruction. 10 million years we have conquered. Omega Prime's patterns finally blazed across space. 10 million years we have accumulated power. But what have we built that will outlast the stars? The question struck at the heart of ancient creature philosophy. They had never considered legacy beyond personal survival. The concept of creating something that would benefit future generations was foreign to a species that had always operated in isolation. Show us, Omega Prime continued, its patterns now carrying curiosity rather than aggression. Show us how to build something worthy of our strength. What followed was the greatest collaborative project in galactic history. Ancient creatures brought knowledge accumulated across millions of years. Humans contributed their talent for cooperative innovation, and progressive creatures provided the bridge between both perspectives. Together, they began building something unprecedented, a galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. Ancient creature biotechnology merged with human creativity to produce wonders that exceeded the sum of their parts. Space stations grew like living coral reefs, capable of supporting countless species while defending themselves through adaptation rather than weapons. Transport networks spanned galaxies, allowing the free exchange of knowledge and culture between worlds that had never imagined peaceful contact. Art installations the size of solar systems celebrated the beauty of cooperative achievement. Educational complexes taught young beings from all species how to build rather than destroy, how to heal rather than harm, how to create rather than consume. Alex Chen, now permanently symbiotic with creature technology, became the first ambassador of the new galactic civilization. His consciousness expanded to encompass perspectives from across the galaxy. Yet he remained fundamentally human in his commitment to empathy and cooperation. Captain Rodriguez established the first interspecies colony, where human children grew up alongside young creatures, learning from each other and developing capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. Dr. Vasquez founded the Galactic Institute for Cooperative Evolution, dedicated to studying how different species could enhance each other through peaceful interaction rather than competition. And Seeker, the creature whose curiosity had started it all, became the guardian of first contact protocols, ensuring that future encounters between species would begin with offers of friendship rather than assumptions of hostility. Years later, as human-creature hybrid ships explored distant galaxies, they carried with them the lesson that had transformed their own corner of the universe. The greatest predators in space had learned that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to choose creation over destruction. The galaxy had learned that even the fiercest apex predator could be transformed by a simple offer of food and compassion. And in that transformation, both species had discovered that the universe held possibilities they had never imagined when they lived in isolation and fear.